There's no subjective experience for a zombie. From the outside they look just like a normal human being. So my zombie twin might be behaving just like me, even saying all these things, but would have no consciousness on the inside. Some people you interact with every day might not be real, not in the way you think. They look human, they speak, they react, they follow routines, but beneath the surface something is missing. You've felt it before, that strange emptiness in their eyes, the robotic way they repeat mainstream narratives, the complete inability to question reality. It's as if they're running on a script, responding predictably, never showing true independent thought. Philosophers, neuroscientists and researchers have explored this for centuries. The idea that not all human beings operate at the same level of consciousness. Some function purely on autopilot, following conditioned behaviors without introspection, self-awareness, or even an inner monologue. If that's true, then what does it say about the world we live in? More importantly, what does it say about you? The evidence is everywhere. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And by the end of this video you might never look at people the same way again. The nature of consciousness and NPC theory. Most people assume that consciousness is universal, that if someone is walking, talking, and responding to the world, they must be fully aware of themselves and their actions. But what if that assumption is wrong? What if in reality, a large percentage of the population is operating on something closer to autopilot, reacting instead of thinking, repeating instead of questioning? This isn't just some internet meme about NPCs, it's an idea that has been explored for centuries by some of the greatest thinkers in history. Plato warned about this in his allegory of the cave. He described people trapped in a world of shadows, mistaking illusions for reality, unaware that a greater truth existed beyond their limited perception. They never even questioned what they saw, they simply reacted. G.F., a mystic and philosopher, took it further, claiming that most humans live in a state of waking sleep, carrying out their lives mechanically, controlled by impulses rather than conscious thought. In his words, man is a machine, everything with him happens. Modern psychology confirms what these philosophers suspected all along. Most human behavior is unconscious. Studies show that up to 95% of daily decisions are made automatically, without deliberate thought. The brain relies on pre-programmed responses, shaped by past experiences, social conditioning, and external influences. You might think you're making a conscious choice, but in reality your brain is following a pattern, one that was set long before you ever realized it. This is why some people never question their beliefs, they simply absorb what they're told. Whether it's from the media, the government, or their peers, they don't analyze, they don't reflect, and they certainly don't challenge the system. They exist within it, playing their role exactly as they were conditioned to, just like an NPC in a video game. You've probably encountered these people before. Maybe you've tried discussing a complex idea with them, only to get the same canned responses, as if they're running a script. They're not engaging in real thought. They're repeating what they've been told to believe, and here's the unsettling part: if so many people are operating on unconscious patterns, then how many are actually self-aware? How many are truly awake? If most people are simply reacting to the world around them, then what happens when the world itself is designed to keep them asleep? What if society is structured in a way that encourages NPC-like behavior, rewarding those who follow the script, and punishing those who think for themselves? The deeper you go, the more disturbing the truth becomes, and it all leads to a question that has haunted philosophers and scientists for decades. The zombie problem in philosophy. What if some people aren't fully conscious at all? If someone looks human, speaks like a human, and reacts like a human, does that mean they truly experience life the way you do? Or is it possible that some people are simply running on biological scripts, mimicking emotions and responses, without any true subjective awareness? This question isn't new, it has haunted philosophers for centuries, but in recent years it has taken on a terrifying edge. David Chalmers, one of the most influential thinkers in modern philosophy, introduced the concept of philosophical zombies, or P-zombies, beings that behave exactly like conscious humans, but have no inner experience. Imagine someone who laughs, cries, and speaks about their feelings, but inside there's nothing, no self-awareness, no internal experience, just programmed reactions. Think about the implications of this. If P-zombies could theoretically exist, how would we know who has an actual inner world of thoughts and feelings, and who is just playing the part? You can't prove someone else is conscious, you can only assume. This is what's known as the hard problem of consciousness. The disturbing realization that we have no way of measuring subjective experience. Someone could act as though they are thinking deeply, but inside they could be empty, just a set of neurons, firing in a predetermined way, responding to stimuli, but never truly experiencing anything. You've seen this before. Have you ever tried discussing a profound idea, only to be met with blank stares, or robotic emotionless responses? Have you noticed how some people never reflect on their own lives, never question their reality, never exhibit true depth, they just exist repeating what they've been told, moving through life in a loop? The deeper you look, the more unsettling it gets. It's not that they lack intelligence, it's that they lack something deeper. Now, if this was just a thought experiment, it would be disturbing enough, but here's the real nightmare. Science is starting to confirm that some people may actually lack self-awareness, in ways we never imagined. Neuroscientists have studied split-brain patients, individuals whose brain hemispheres have been surgically separated. What they found was shocking: one side of the brain can act completely independently of the other, even forming separate thoughts and behaviors. This suggests that self-awareness isn't as unified as we once believed. If a person can have two conflicting minds inside one brain, then imagine how fragile is the very idea of personal identity. And then there's the even darker revelation that many people seem to lack inner dialogue altogether. Surveys have shown that a significant portion of the population doesn't have a constant stream of thoughts running through their head. They don't question themselves, they don't reflect on their actions, they simply respond to life, moment by moment, as if their thoughts were external impulses, rather than internal reflections. The implications are staggering. If some people lack true introspection, if their thoughts are merely reactions rather than conscious decisions, then how many of them are just biological machines, existing without truly experiencing? If we are surrounded by people who function this way, what does that mean for society? More importantly, what does it mean for you? Because if true consciousness is rare, then those who possess it are in a completely different reality than the masses, and that means the world you think you live in might not be what it seems at all. Neuroscience and the lack of inner awareness. The idea that some people might be running on autopilot isn't just a philosophical theory, it's backed by hard science. Neuroscientists have spent decades studying the way the human brain processes thoughts, decisions, and consciousness itself, and what they found is disturbing. Not all brains function the same way. One of the most shocking discoveries in neuroscience is that a large percentage of the population lacks an internal monologue. You might assume that everyone thinks like you do, processing thoughts in words, engaging in an internal conversation with themselves. But studies have shown that many people don't experience this at all. They don't have an ongoing narrative in their minds. Instead, their thoughts come as impulses, images, or reactions to their environment. They move through life without ever reflecting on their own decisions in the way a deeply self-aware person does. This raises an unsettling question: if someone doesn't engage in deep thought, are they truly conscious, or just responding to stimuli? E.g. brain scans have revealed another startling truth: not all brains engage in the same level of introspection. Researchers have measured the brain activity of individuals who engage in frequent deep thought, and compared them to those who don't. The differences are profound. People who reflect on their choices, analyze their beliefs, and engage in complex internal discussions, show significantly more activity in the prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain responsible for higher-order thinking. But for others, that activity is minimal or absent. What this suggests is that there may be a divide in humanity. Not between intelligence and ignorance, but between conscious thought and unconscious existence. Think about the implications of this. Have you ever met someone who seemed to drift through life, without ever questioning anything, who never seemed to have an original thought, who just absorbed the opinions of others and repeated them without a second of doubt, who seemed to exist only in reaction mode, moving from one stimulus to the next, with no deeper reflection? This is what neuroscience is beginning to uncover. Some people may not be experiencing life with the same level of self-awareness as others, and it's not just a matter of personality, it's biological. Some people literally lack the neurological architecture for deep introspection. Their brains are wired to process the world in a way that doesn't require them to think deeply or reflect on their existence. They operate on learned behaviors, absorbed opinions, and automatic patterns, rather than independent conscious reasoning. This is why some people seem completely incapable of breaking free from routine, why they struggle to challenge mainstream narratives, why they never ask themselves what if everything I believe is wrong. Their minds don't work that way. They aren't questioning reality because in a very real sense they are part of it. Now consider how this affects society as a whole. If a large portion of the population is biologically predisposed to follow, rather than think, what does that mean for the world we live in? Who is really in control, the few who question everything, or the many who simply follow orders without ever realizing they're doing it? And what if this isn't just random evolution, but something deeper? What if some people are quite literally designed to exist as background characters, in a system built to keep them that way? If some people exist without deep interested inspection, if their actions are purely reactive, and if their minds seem to follow pre-programmed patterns, then we have to ask a disturbing question. Are they even real in the way we think of real? And if they're not, then what does that say about the nature of reality itself? The simulation hypothesis and NPC behavior. For years, scientists and philosophers have entertained the idea that reality isn't what it seems. The simulation hypothesis, popularized by Oxford philosopher Nick Bostrom, suggests that if it's possible for a civilization to create highly advanced simulations of conscious beings, then it's overwhelmingly likely that we already exist within one. In other words, what we perceive as real life may actually be a programmed environment designed for a purpose we don't yet understand. And here's where things get even more unsettling: if this world operates like a simulation, then it would make perfect sense that not every character in it is fully conscious. In video games, not all entities are equally complex. Some are just NPCs, non-playable characters programmed to react, but never to act with true independence. Their purpose isn't to think, it's to fill space, maintain the illusion of a living world, and follow predetermined scripts. Now look around you. How many people do you know who operate on loops, living predictable lives, repeating the same phrases, following the same patterns, never questioning the system they live in? They react to social stimuli, they follow trends, they echo the thoughts of the collective, but they never seem to originate ideas on their own. They don't push boundaries, they enforce them. They exist in the world, but do they truly experience it? Dr. James Gates, a theoretical physicist, discovered something bizarre while studying the fundamental nature of reality. Within the equations of string theory he found computer-like error-correcting codes. These codes, the same ones used in modern computer software, appear embedded in the very fabric of the universe itself. Let that sink in. If our reality operates on principles that mirror digital computation, then the idea that some players within it are just programmed constructs isn't science fiction, it's a logical conclusion. And here's the most terrifying part: if NPCs exist in a simulation, they wouldn't need to be fully rendered with complex consciousness. Just like in video games, only the parts of reality that matter to the main players need to be detailed. The rest, it can be automated, filled with placeholders, populated with beings that simply respond, ensuring that the illusion remains intact. So ask yourself, if the world truly is a simulation, are you a real player, or are you just playing a role, repeating the same actions, trapped in the same cycles, never realizing you're following a script? And if you are conscious, if you can even ask this question, then the next logical step is to figure out what's really controlling this system, and why. Because if NPCs exist, it means that not everyone is meant to wake up, but are you one of them? The only question is, will you? If reality functions like a programmed system, then NPCs aren't just a glitch, they're a feature. Social conditioning and the NPC effect. And here's the truth they don't want you to realize. Society is designed to mass-produce NPCs to condition people into predictable reactionary obedient roles. Not because of some grand conspiracy, but because control thrives on compliance, not critical thinking. From birth you're taught how to behave, what to believe, and what to desire. The education system doesn't teach you how to think, it teaches you what to think. Schools aren't designed to create independent free-thinking individuals. They exist to manufacture workers, people who will sit down, follow instructions and never question the system they were born into. The bell rings, you move, the teacher speaks, you listen. Your grades don't measure intelligence, they measure how well you comply. The media does the same thing. It gives you prepackaged opinions, perfectly designed so you don't have to think for yourself. It tells you who to trust, who to hate, what to fear. It gives you an enemy so you don't question the real power structures controlling your life. It distracts you with celebrity gossip, political theater, and consumer culture, while the real decisions about the future of the world are made behind closed doors. And social conditioning runs even deeper than that. Society rewards those who follow the script, and punishes those who don't. Step outside the accepted narrative and you'll notice something. Suddenly you're the crazy one, you're the outcast. Try questioning mainstream beliefs in public, and watch how quickly people shut you down, repeat talking points, and label you as dangerous, or irrational. Why? Because their identity is built on the illusion of certainty. They don't think about what they believe. They defend the beliefs they were given. To them, independent thought is terrifying because it threatens the comfort of the program they've been running their entire lives, and that's exactly how the system wants it. It doesn't need people thinking critically, it needs them docile, distracted, and emotionally reactive. It needs them addicted to their own outrage, so they never step back and ask who benefits from my anger? Who profits from my division? Who gains power when I obey without questioning? And here's the most important part, most people will never ask these questions. They aren't supposed to, they were never designed to, they were programmed for predictability, not for introspection. So what does this mean for you? It means that if you're asking these questions, if you're seeing through the illusion, you are already different, you are already awake in a world where most are sleepwalking. But waking up isn't enough. Because the system is still running, the program is still in place. The question now is, what are you going to do about it? How to identify NPCs in your life. Not everyone you meet is fully conscious. Some people function like biological machines, reacting instead of thinking, absorbing in instead of questioning, existing instead of truly living. But how do you recognize them? How do you separate the players from the background characters? The truth is, The signs are everywhere, and once you learn to spot them you'll start seeing NPCs all around you. The first and most obvious sign is predictability. NPCs follow patterns, routines, they never break opinions, they never question behaviors, repeat over and over without deviation, they consume the same media, say the same phrases, hold the same beliefs as the people around them. When faced with new information they don't analyze, it either aligns with their programming, or they reject it completely. They don't ask, could I be wrong? They only defend what they already believe. Then there's the lack of introspection. Have you ever met someone who never reflects on their own thoughts or actions, who never questions their past decisions, or wonders why they behave the way they do? These are people who function on autopilot, running pre-installed scripts without ever pausing to examine them. They react emotionally to situations, but never ask themselves why they feel the way they do. Their opinions aren't formed through deep reflection, they've been absorbed from the collective. NPCs also exhibit rigid thinking, they struggle with ambiguity, complex or deep philosophical discussion, they don't seek understanding, they seek confirmation. If a conversation challenges their worldview, they default to pre-programmed responses. That's just a conspiracy theory, that's not how the world works, just trust the experts. These aren't independent thoughts, they're defensive mechanisms designed to protect the programming, not to uncover the truth. Another key trait is blind obedience to authority. NPCs trust institutions without question. Governments, media corporations, academia. They assume these systems exist to help them, never realizing they were built to control them. If the news tells them something, it must be true. If an official source declares something, it must be believed. They have outsourced their thinking to external entities, not realizing those entities profit from their compliance. And here's something few people talk about, the NPC response to reality shifts. Have you ever noticed how when a major event happens, people instantly parrot the same opinions, at the exact same time, as if they were all updated with new dialogue scripts overnight? Suddenly everyone around you is repeating the same phrases, the same moral outrage, the same outrage cycles without ever stopping to question why? That's not free thought, that's programming in action. But the most chilling realization, NPCs don't know they are NPCs. They are convinced they are fully conscious rational individuals making independent choices, when in reality, they are acting out the exact roles society designed for them. They believe they are free, yet every decision they make follows the invisible lines drawn for them. This is why waking people up is nearly impossible. You can't tell an NPC that they're an NPC, their programming won't allow them to accept it. The only thing you can do is recognize them for what they are, and decide how to interact with them. Do you engage? Do you walk away? Do you use them as a reflection of what happens when you stop questioning, stop growing, stop thinking for yourself? Because in the end, the real question isn't about them, it's about you. If NPCs exist and they do, then what does that say about the way you live? Are you thinking for yourself, or are you just a more advanced version of the same script? Because if you're not careful, you might be running on autopilot without even realizing it. Are you an NPC? How to break free? It's easy to point fingers, to look at the world and recognize the predictable programmed responses in others, but the real question is one most people are too afraid to ask. What if I'm the NPC? It's uncomfortable. No one wants to believe they're sleepwalking through life, repeating the same cycles, living on autopilot. But the truth is most people are, and if you've never questioned it, if you've never seriously analyzed your own programming, then you might still be running on scripts without even realizing it. The first step to breaking free is brutal honesty. Ask yourself, do I form my own beliefs, or do I simply adopt what I'm exposed to? Do I seek out uncomfortable truths, or do I only consume what reinforces my current worldview? Do I have moments of deep introspection, or do I fill my time with distractions? If you don't actively question your reality, then by default you're following a program. That's how the system is designed, to keep you busy, distracted, and compliant, so you never stop and ask, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? Who benefits from my obedience? Breaking free requires a complete reset of how you approach life. The world conditions you to seek validation over truth, entertainment over knowledge, comfort over growth. That's how NPCs are created. But if you want to escape that fate, you have to be willing to do what most people never will, reprogram yourself. It starts with awareness, catching yourself when you're acting out a script. Every time you react emotionally to something, stop and ask, is this my thought, or is it a programmed response? Every time you feel strongly about an issue, ask yourself, how did I come to believe this? Was this conclusion given to me, or did I arrive at it through my own critical thinking? The next step is disrupting your patterns. NPCs live on loops: wake up, go to work, consume media, repeat. If you want to wake up, break the cycle, start doing things differently, change your routine, challenge your beliefs, expose yourself to new ideas, especially the ones that make you uncomfortable. Growth only happens when you step outside of the mental walls built for you. And here's the real secret: you can't wake up by just consuming information, you have to act. NPCs absorb content passively, they watch, they scroll, they nod along, but they never apply what they learn. If you want to break free, you have to put knowledge into practice, change how you think, how you behave, how you respond to the world. Refuse to be predictable, but the biggest key to escaping the NPC trap: detachment from the system's control mechanisms. The system keeps you asleep by tying your identity to external forces, political narratives, social validation, endless entertainment, meaningless consumption. To wake up, you have to detach from all of it. Stop seeking approval, stop reacting to propaganda, stop letting the media dictate what's important in your life. Start thinking, questioning, creating, become a player, not a pawn. Most people will never do this. They will continue existing in their loops, following scripts, never realizing they were programmed from birth. But if you're still here, if you've made it this far, then you are already different, you're already on the path out. The only question now is, will you finish what you started? You've already taken the first step. Now it's time to take control. The final truth about NPCs and reality. If you've made it this far, then you already know most people will never wake up. They will continue repeating the same behaviors, following the same loops, believing the same lies, not because they're incapable of understanding, but because they were never meant to question anything at all. The system doesn't just tolerate NPCs, it depends on them. But here's the question that changes everything. If NPCs exist, what does that say about reality itself? Think about it: if some people function like pre-programmed background characters, mindlessly following the flow of the world, then does that mean this reality was designed to operate that way? Could it be that only a small percentage of people are meant to be fully conscious, that most are just placeholders running scripts, maintaining the illusion of a fully populated thinking world? And if that's true, then what does it mean about you? Because if you've even asked these questions, if you felt the weight of this knowledge pressing against your mind, then you are already different, you are not like them, you are meant to wake up. But here's the part that most people refuse to accept. Waking up isn't the end of the journey, it's the beginning. Seeing the cage doesn't free you from it. Real freedom only comes when you take action. You now understand what NPCs are, you've seen the patterns, the loops, the unconscious scripts running through society, but the deeper truth is this: every system in the world is built to keep you asleep. The education system, it wasn't designed to create independent thinkers, it was designed to turn you into an efficient worker. The media, it wasn't designed to inform you, it was designed to keep you emotionally reactive, too distracted to think for yourself. The political system, it wasn't designed to give you power, it was designed to give you the illusion of choice, while the real decisions are made behind the scenes. Everything around you was structured to turn you into an NPC whether you realize it or not. The reason so many people seem trapped in loops is because the system built those loops for them, and if you're not actively breaking out of it, then you are by default being pulled back in. So what do you do now? You disconnect from the programming. You stop playing their game. You stop reacting the way they want you to. You stop feeding the distractions, the outrage, the cycles designed to keep your mind preoccupied, while the real decisions about your life are made without you. Instead, you take control. You become intentional with your time, your thoughts, your actions. You create instead of just consuming. You analyze instead of just reacting. You move differently than the rest of the world because you understand something they don't. Most people will never wake up, but you can. The system wants you asleep. Stay awake. The choice is in your hands: stay asleep or break free. Waking up changes everything: the way you see the world, the way you interact with people, the way you navigate life. It all shifts because once you understand that not everyone is conscious, that many people are simply running scripts, you start noticing something even more disturbing. The system is designed to pull you back in: the distractions, the routines, the endless cycles of entertainment, outrage and consumerism. They are all meant to keep you numb, disconnected and passive. The moment you begin to break free, the system will try to drag you back into unconscious. It will tempt you with comfort, push you to conform, and drown you in meaningless noise, because an awakened mind is dangerous. A person who thinks for themselves, who refuses to be manipulated, who does not react predictably, that person is a threat to the entire machine. So the question is, now that you know the truth, what will you do with it? The truth means nothing if you don't act on it. The knowledge you've gained here isn't enough to change your life. You have to apply it. You have to consciously resist falling back into old patterns. You have to remain self-aware, questioning everything, refusing to let external forces dictate your reality. Start by reclaiming your mind. Limit your exposure to the noise, the media, the algorithms, the endless cycle of scripted narratives. They exist to pull your attention away from what really matters. Break free from reactionary thinking and focus on developing independent thought. Then reclaim your time. NPCs waste their lives chasing artificial goals, reacting to programmed incentives, living for validation from a system that was never designed for their benefit. Stop playing their game. Focus on building something real. Your knowledge, your skills, your ability to create, instead of just consume. Most importantly, reclaim your energy. Everything in this world is designed to steal it, to keep you drained, frustrated, distracted, endlessly chasing things that don't matter, but you don't have to participate. You can step outside the system, observe it for what it is, and choose a different path. And here's the final truth: most people will never do this. They will remain asleep, running their scripts, living predictable, controlled lives. But you are not most people. You are here, you have seen behind the curtain, and now you have a choice. Do you stay awake, or do you let the system reclaim you? The world isn't what you thought it was. The people around you aren't who you assumed them to be. But now you have an advantage: you see reality for what it is, and that makes you not only liberated, but powerful. It's time to break the chains.